Chapter 4. Technoblade's not sure what to expect when he slips into the stores late one night after hearing an odd noise from below. But whatever it wasn't this. Because when he slips into the room, there's a sudden clamor. A clattering of pots and pans as they're knocked to the floor. The scuffle of boxes and barrels hastily pushed aside as someone, makes for an escape. He moves without thinking, lunging forward, his fingers curling around the collar of whatever unfortunate crewmate has just been caught stealing more than their share of rations, and an unfamiliar face blinks down at him. Wide gray eyes, a youthful face half covered by an odd mask, and messy blonde hair make up the countenance of the stowaway, who begins to thrash and tremble fiercely in Technoblade's grasp. He towers easily over Technoblade, but makes for perhaps the least imposing figure he's ever seen, hunching over and holding up his hands placatingly as the captain holds him firmly in place. "The hell are you doing on this ship?" he snaps, yanking him around to properly face him. "Don't hurt me," the kid wails, with a paling face and a wobbling voice, and that's when all hell breaks loose. Ronbu. There are suddenly two more figures in the room, and hands pulling his own roughly away from the boy, who stumbles back into the waiting arms of Tubbo? The gunner is glaring fiercely at him, standing in front of the frightened stowaway, his arms spread as if to shield him away from Technoblade. Tommy is the one holding him, carefully guiding his hands back down to his sides, his blue eyes wide and fierce, as he, too, presses between his captain and the thieving stowaway. There's a commotion above them of pounding feet and muffled voices, the interaction no doubt waking up the rest of the crew, but Technoblade has eyes only for the two members. "The fuck are you doing?" Tommy cries, as if Technoblade is the one at fault here. The kid has puffed himself up to his full height, teeth bared in a snarl that reminds him that his cabin boy still has quite a vendetta against him. "What am I doing? He's a stowaway. You were gonna hurt him." The cabin boy's voice pitches accusingly. "I wasn't..." Technoblade groans in exasperation, pinching the bridge of his nose. "I wasn't going to hurt him, Tommy. But he's not exactly supposed to be here, you know." "I'm sorry." The stowaway pipes up from behind his guards, looking for all the world like he'd rather be anywhere than here. I'm sorry, Mr. Captain Technoblade, sir. I had nowhere else to go, and Tubbo told me He cuts off abruptly, swallows, and shoots a guilty look in the shorter boy's direction. "Tubbo told me I could come with him." "Ah." Technoblade heaves a long sigh and opens his mouth to reprimand them, just as another body comes thundering into the room, cutlass drawn and shoulders poised and ready for a fight. "Tommy? Tubbo?" Phil gasps out, looking panicked, his hair askew and blue eyes wide and wild as he scans for the boys. When he sees what's happened, his demeanor changes in the blink of an eye, his sword lowering to rest cautiously at his hip. His lips tighten, his eyes narrowing as he locks gazes with the stowaway, who immediately flinches and lowers his head to study the ground. Phil seems to study him for a moment, his expression curious and calculating as he puts two and two together. And then he sighs. "Another. Really? What?" "He looked so lost," Tubbo whines plaintively. "Wasn't the cat enough?" "Cat? The ship has a cat?" A fluffy calico cat meows loudly from the corner, making her presence known. She hops down from her perch atop a stack of crates and begins winding her way around the stowaway's ankles, who picks her swiftly up and cradles her to his chest. A steady purr fills the silence as he scratches her ears. "They were a package deal," Tubbo argues. "And you couldn't have told me this. Why?" "Well," Tubbo grimaces, "it was sort of last-minute arrangement." "Oh my gods." "Please don't be mad." Tubbo, who is that? He may or may not be the son of the last port's governor? Oh, for fuck's sake. Sorry. Tubbo looks rightfully ashamed. The whole Royal Navy's gonna be on our tail, Tubbo. As if they weren't already. Technoblade pipes in, only to clamp his mouth shut when Phil shoots a heated glare his way. They're gonna think we kidnapped him. Every port for 100 leagues is gonna be on the lookout for our ship within a month. It wasn't his fault. A new voice cries, before immediately softening, the stowaway stepping out from behind Tubbo's arm to approach Phil. I asked him to. Okay? I didn't really give him a choice, I just... His fists clench at his sides as he hangs his head. I just needed to get away. I couldn't stay there anymore. There's a beat in which the very universe seems to hold its breath, and Technoblade along with it. And then, gradually at first, Phil's anger softens. His brows relax, his snarl fading. His cutlass sheathed safely back away in his belt. He seems to hover in front of the boy for a minute, casting long looks between the three of them, his head tilted. He looks thoughtful, reminiscent even, as he steps away from the kid, turning instead to Technoblade, with the slightest incline of his head. It's only then that Technoblade remembers he's supposed to be the one in charge. Well... He fumbles for the right thing to say, shooting a quick glare over at his first mate for putting him on the spot in front of a kid who looks ready to cry at any minute. He really doesn't care all that much if the kid stays, so long as he proves his worth, but it's the principle of the matter. Stowaways aren't exactly welcome when you've rationed your food for a specific crew size. And when said stowaway is the son of an important government figure with a fleet of Navy ships at his disposal, the damage is already done, isn't it? Proof or not, they're going to be on our tail no matter what. I suppose we are too far away from port to really turn back now, Phil offers softly. There's a quiet, horrified gasp, and then, "Please don't throw me overboard, Mr. Captain Technoblade," comes the quiet plea. Phil muffles a snort into his sleeve while Technoblade just blinks. Why would I can't swim well. Don't make me swim back. Kid, I'm not gonna throw you overboard, relax. But you're a pirate. I'm not... He groans. Look, I'm just filling a vacancy here. Don't get it twisted, kid. So you're not... Ronbu's brows knit. Nah, mate, he's a pirate, through and through. Phil quips, only adding to the confusion. He just doesn't know it yet. I am not. He's in denial, Phil stage whispers conspiratorially. Look. Technoblade shrugs off Phil's gleeful wheeze. Ranbu, you know you chose to stow away with pirates, right? Pirates? We're not exactly the good guys here. We're on the wrong side of history, I'm pretty sure. I don't believe in sides, the kid answers softly, with a fond look Tubbo's way. Just the people on them. Phil's chuckle abruptly dies, and Technoblade is overcome with a sudden, funny feeling in his stomach. He opens his mouth to respond to that, to give some sort of argument for the life he's always believed to be right, but... So he can stay? Tubbo interrupts, with wide eyes and the slightest quirk of a hopeful smile, grabbing on tight to one of Ronbu's hands. Well... He looks once more to Phil, who gives a slight nod. I'll keep an eye on them, mate. Then... Fine. We wouldn't exactly have made port for at least another few weeks, so you didn't really give me much of a choice, but... And he watches as all three of the boys begin to grin, bright and cheerful and delighted, and it makes the prickle of his annoyance fade in the slightest. Yeah, he can stay. There are a few celebratory whoops. But... Technoblade interrupts. Ranbu, was it? I'm not gonna let you off the hook that easily. None of you. You three did kinda lie to Phil and I, so I'm gonna leave your punishment up to him. Phil grins. The boys cower a little at the sight of it. I'm sure I can find plenty of chores that need doing round the ship. Aw, but Phil... Phil merely quirks an eyebrow. No buts. Now off to bed, the lot of you. Get Ronbu a proper hammock. I'm sure the bed can't be comfortable. I'll see you all first thing tomorrow morning to scrub the deck. With a chorus of grumbled, half-hearted complaints, the merry trio begins to shuffle their way out of the room and up the stairs. Those two are gonna be the fucking death of me one of these days. Phil's voice is harsh, but his expression softens as he watches the three friends scamper up the steps and to the crew's quarters for the night. Technoblade finds himself grinning. Not their dad, huh? Shut. Though Technoblade is loath to admit it, Ronbu fits perfectly into their jumbled puzzle of a crew. He accepts his portion of the punishment without complaint, and is quick to help wherever else he's needed. In the early mornings of the days that follow, he can be seen at Eric's side, the two murmuring softly to one another as the sun begins to crest over the horizon. He helps Jack cook and keeps Nikki company at the wheel. But most of all, he sticks religiously by Tubbo and Tommy's sides. The three are rarely seen apart, a trio of complete and utter chaos for anyone unfortunate enough to be subjected to their mischief. Ronbu turns out to be the perfect, innocent bystander for their pranks, playing a convincing facade of ignorance after successfully distracting their unsuspecting victims long enough for Tommy and Tubbo to plan their attack. They're inseparable. Their energy is contagious, though. Even in his short time as captain, Technoblade can see the effect the three have on the crew. They're the ship's backbone of morale, their smiles infecting everyone in their path. They keep the crew on their toes on sleepy afternoons, and entertain them with far-fetched tales of action and adventure as the sun sets over their evening meals out on the deck. Even Ronbu catches on to the whimsical fun of storytelling, and soon enough he's gained enough confidence to weave tales of his own, of magic and monsters out on the open sea, the likes of which Technoblade's never seen rivaled. He laughs, he shouts, and he opens up in a way Technoblade wouldn't have thought possible from his first meeting with the quiet, slouched kid in the cargo hold. Technoblade himself even starts to religiously attend the celebrations, if only to pull away from the boring routine of eating meals alone in his cabin. The crew welcomes him into their midst each time, shifting to make room to sit on a stray barrel or box, and even just the cool wooden floor of the deck. He tells himself it's to keep a close eye on the crew's morale, but the first time he slips into the crowd to join them, he catches a glimpse of wide gray eyes latched on him, glittering with awe and excitement, and he can't bring himself to leave until Ronbu's gone off to bed for the night. Okay, so maybe he's grown a little fond of the kid, but he's not soft on him. No, that title belongs to Phil. Phil spoils the kid rotten. He slips him extra rations around mealtime, which is good, since the boy's practically skin and bones anyway. He's constantly praising him for even the most minor of accomplishments, something Ronbu seems to eat up greedily, his eyes crinkling with a smile at every passing affirmation. He speaks gently to the stowaway, more gently than Technoblade thought was possible for his boisterous first mate, and he smiles at him in a way that isn't all warmth and sunshine, his expression always lingering with something more haunted, something sad. He catches his first mate watching the kid fondling one day as he scrubs the deck alongside Tommy and Tubbo. He leans up against the railing, arms folded, looking all the part of a stern supervisor, were it not for the slightest upturn of his lips. Technoblade leans next to him with a hum that Phil barely acknowledges. He sits quietly beside him for a few minutes, just watching the kids work, before finally he breaks it with a soft murmur. Another one of your strays. Can't seem to help myself, Phil answers softly. But there's a distant look in his eye when he speaks, a certain stiffness to his shoulders. It doesn't go unnoticed by Technoblade. He's used to seeing Phil bright and loud and frankly annoying at times, but never so quiet. It's disquieting, almost eerie even. It feels wrong, and he doesn't like the way it makes his stomach twist with something worryingly close to concern for the pirate. He wants it to end as soon as possible, and so he figures the best way to confront it is head-on, right at the source. He has a sneaking suspicion about what the cause might be. Look, is this... Technoblade winces at his bluntness, but it's too late to backtrack now, so he pushes forward nevertheless, intent on getting to the bottom of Phil's odd behavior. Is this about your kid? The one you talked about when you were, I didn't think you'd remember that, Phil admits quietly. The far-off look in his gaze remains, even as he turns away from the sea to face Technoblade. His hands are clenched, white-knuckled around the railing. Listen, I'm not trying to pry, but it seems like you're still pretty hung up on this. If you need, I don't want to talk about it, Phil says flatly. There's no arguing with such a blunt dismissal. Technoblade grimaces, an awkward silence filling the space between them. He had given it his best shot, at least. No harm in that. Right, he coughs. I'm just gonna go, see if Nikki needs any help at the wheel. You do that, Phil replies softly. He doesn't seem to be paying much attention at all, his gaze glassy and returned once more to the rolling sea. Technoblade leaves him there, staring out into nothingness. The Navy's scouting ship catches up with them a few days later. It's a small thing, manned by a young crew of only a dozen men or so. It isn't meant for combat, nor are its men, but their captain is wily and headstrong, and quick to issue a fool's challenge against the Argo, which far outguns them. The crew, of course, is more than ready to reciprocate, bristling and armed to the teeth as the two ships sit at a standstill, cannons poised to fire at a moment's notice. They're not gonna back down, Phil hisses to him. We're not getting out of this without a fight. Technoblade curses the reckless impudence that seems to infect young Navymen like a plague, though he knows he was once much the same. They're here for the kid, Technoblade growls. Ronbu, wedged safely between the two and half of the rest of the crew, makes a soft, worried noise. We won't let him take you back, mate, Phil murmurs in reassurance, though his gaze is not fixed on their newest addition, but rather the threat at hand. His hand strays to his holster, his fingers resting comfortably on his pistol. He looks like a cat ready to spring, and Technoblade doesn't doubt his reflexes for a moment. Maybe if I just went with them, maybe they'd leave you alone? Maybe. Technoblade doubts it. I could try. You guys shouldn't have to fight them, not for me, so maybe... And then, Phil turns swiftly to Ronbu, placing a gentle yet firm hand on his shoulder, coaxing him to look into his eyes and away from the ship beside them. Once the boy has stopped trembling so fiercely, he speaks, so softly Technoblade nearly misses it. Ronbu, mate, what do you want? And the kid hesitates, wide-eyed and stiff-shouldered, before he glances over at Tommy and Tubbo, standing shoulder to shoulder at the cannons, jeering insults at their opponents. I want to stay with you. I don't want to go back. Then you won't. Simple as that. And Phil's gaze turns icy as he directs his attention to the enemy. He draws himself up to full height, his lips flat, his expression cold, and suddenly it's all too easy to remember exactly why he boasts the name Angel of Death. He lifts his pistol in the sky and fires once, the sound echoing off the ocean's surface, drawing their enemy's attention directly to him. "Hi, mates," he says with false cheer, blowing the smoke from the end of his weapon and fiddling casually with the trigger. "I'm gonna give you lot one chance to run. We don't want to fight, and you're hardly prepared for one. Turn around now and we'll leave you be." A gun fires, the bullet narrowly missing Phil and lodging itself into the mast with a shower of splinters. Phil sighs. "Don't say I didn't warn you," he hisses under his breath, and shoots a questioning look Technoblade's way. Technoblade nods, stiffly. They gave them a chance. Phil moves to raise his hand to give the order, but Technoblade grabs it, pulling him close with a muttered warning. Don't kill anyone, all right?" Phil's eyes narrow, but he gives a short nod before pulling away, jogging off and shouting orders to their crew. "Fire when ready, boys!" His call rings out through the air, and Tubbo's delighted cackle answers. "Aim to capture, not kill." There's a booming volley of cannon fire that tears through the opponent's hull like it's made of glass. The Navy doesn't stand a chance. The battle lasts half an hour tops. Technoblade spends most of it exchanging gunfire with the opposing captain, gritting his teeth against the familiar smell of gunpowder and smoke, and finding surprising joy in the exhilaration of battle. He can hear Phil amidst the chaos, his orders and laughter alike ringing true through the explosions and shouts. His shootout is a brief exchange, the enemy quickly betraying his cowardice and abandoning the fight to retreat into the midst of his crew when he can't land a shot. Technoblade's regard for the man immediately sours. No proper captain would have abandoned a fight so easily. The battle ends not long after. The other ship just isn't built for war, and when half of the Argo's crew swings over to board the ruins of their slowly sinking ship, there's a near immediate surrender. Technoblade's crew dissolves into cheers when the last weapon is laid down, but he has no time for such frivolities. He watches the proceedings critically, nodding in approval when their opponents are guided safely off their sinking vessel and onto the ship's dinghy to be transported safely to the brig. They'll drop them off at a port somewhere. "Tubbo, what's the status on the hull?" He turns to the gunner, who grins proudly, his face soot-smeared and positively giddy with joy. "Minimal damage, Captain. Just a few scratches." "Good. Then let's press on and make for..." There's a bang, a shout, and a splash. Technoblade turns, firing without hesitation and striking their final opponent, the ship's wayward captain, down from where he'd been hiding amidst the wreckage of the sinking ship. He drops bonelessly and doesn't move again. Technoblade has half a heartbeat to process that he's just killed a man he once would have considered an ally, before a soft noise pulls his attention away again. At the side of the ship, Phil is clutching at his shoulder, where red is beginning to blossom across the white of his undershirt. And Ronbu is nowhere to be seen. The splash. "Shit," Phil wheezes, dropping to one knee to hide behind the railing. "Techno the kid. He went overboard. I pushed him out of the way and he fell. He can't... Fuck. He said he can't swim." "Neither can I," Technoblade wants to shout, but nevertheless rushes past his first mate, feeling a bullet narrowly graze past his cheek as he tosses his jacket aside, swinging one leg over the railing and preparing to plunge into the icy waters. His breath catches in his chest, his blood roaring in his ears as he remembers the way it tried to drag him down last time, the heavy darkness threatening to sink him along with his ship. He has half a moment to ponder it, to weigh his fear for his life over his responsibility for his crew. And in that moment, all he can feel is the steady, cold creeping of terror into his heart. And then he sees it. A flash of shimmering black and white scales. A flash of a fin as it breaches the water. A merfolk blinks up at him, all wide eyes and flattened fin-like ears. fingers curling around a floating piece of debris as if to shield himself from prying eyes. He looks different, his hair now bicolor, black and white, his skin dusted with dark freckles and scales alike. But nevertheless, it's Ronbu staring up at him, alive and well, and decidedly not human. "Welp," Ronbu says nervously, popping the pea, flashing sharp white teeth that suddenly make his use of a mask far more understandable. "Surprise?" Technoblade doesn't have an answer for that. "The kid, is he okay?" "I think he's gonna be just fine, Phil." He laughs breathlessly, running a hand through his hair as he watches Ronbu splash around amidst the wreckage. Phil just groans in response. It's then that he remembers the man's injury, then that he sees the crimson still steadily spilling between shaking fingers. Ronbu seems to have things handled just fine, decidedly not drowning, and so he turns his attention back to the more pressing matter, shoving back his wonder and disbelief for something a little more practical. "It's not that bad," Phil says, as Technoblade pries his hands away to inspect the injury. Ugh. The man hisses and recoils as he prods a little too hard at the entry wound. "Didn't hit anything important?" "Stay still," Technoblade snaps. "There's no exit wound, idiot. You're just gonna make it worse." "Ah, shit," Phil whines petulantly, just as Eret sinks to their knees beside him, their hands moving to replace Technoblades as they apply pressure. They are the epitome of cool confidence as they work, carefully probing the injury's expanse, nodding when they put pressure on a particular spot that makes Phil groan. "We're going to have to get this out right away," Eret murmurs. "We can't risk infection, not this far off from shore." "Right," Technoblade mutters. His hands are shaking, badly. He's not sure why, because he's helped with field medicine a dozen times before, with injuries far more grave. Whether it's the adrenaline of the fight or the wave of emotion he's currently fighting to suppress, he's off his game, and Eret knows it. "Can somebody help me?" they call softly to the crew that's begun to gather. "I need a pair of eyes and steady hands. I'll talk you through it." "I can do it," comes a soft voice from the crowd, and Ronbu pushes his way forward, dripping wet but noticeably more human, save for the slight point to his ears and a small smattering of iridescent scales across his cheeks above the curve of his mask. He kneels beside Phil, offering a tentative smile that the man tries and fails to replicate, the gesture turning into more of a grimace as Eret cleans the site around the wound. "I can do it," Ronbu says again, this time more softly. "You sure, mate? It's not gonna be a pretty job," Phil pants, his face paling by the minute. "You saved me, Phil," Ronbu murmurs, "so I'm going to help you." "As charming as this is," Eret interjects, "we don't really have time for it unless you want our first mate to bleed out right here. Ronbu, grab the scalpel and follow my lead." Ronbu nods diligently, and Technoblade steps away as they begin their work, Eret muttering soft instructions that Ronbu dutifully follows. The kid is good, you'll give him that. His hands are steady, and he follows each order precisely, never once flinching away when Phil jerks or groans in pain, his jaw set in quiet determination. Soon enough, a bullet clatters to the deck, and Phil's shoulder is being swathed in pristine white bandages. The man whines dramatically, a little pale in the face, but the urgency of the situation has died down enough that the crew is able to breathe a sigh of relief. "Right," Eret says. "That should do it. Good work, kid." Ronbu smiles tentatively, before slowly turning to face Technoblade, his lips turning down, into a worried frown. "I'm sorry," he murmurs, hanging his head. Technoblade blinks. "Oh, f*** off!" Phil exclaims. "I think..." Technoblade quickly interrupts. What he means is, for what? They came here for me, didn't they?" Ronbu says softly, guilt and shame lacing every word. And I let you all fight for me, even though I'm not part of your crew. You fought for me. Phil got hurt for me. I understand if you want me to leave now. Weren't you the one who said, people, not sides? Technoblade questions. Ronbu's face flickers at that, a mix of doubt and worry and relief all at once. I'm not gonna lie. I really didn't want to fight all those guys, but we weren't just gonna let them take you. Besides, they wouldn't exactly have just let us go anyway. We're sort of pirates. He admits it. Phil cackles from his place on the ground. And I regret speaking. Despite Phil's interruption, Ronbu looks soothed. Tubbo and Tommy have made their way over, and while Tommy's attention is divided, shooting occasional concerned glances Phil's way, Tubbo has a firm hand on Ronbu's arm, rubbing circles into his sleeve with his thumb. You don't have to go anywhere, boss man, he murmurs. Not unless you want to. We'll have to talk about... And Technoblade gestures to all of Ronbu wordlessly. This, later, obviously, but yeah. Yeah, kid, you can stay. Ronbu blinks up at him with shining eyes, crinkling in their corners in a way that lets Technoblade know he's positively grinning beneath his mask. Welcome to the crew, Ronbu. It's late that night that Technoblade finds himself eating alone in his cabin for the first time in days. No crewmates have dragged him from his quarters, everyone too exhausted by the earlier fight for the usual raucous celebration and song. He can hear a steady, quiet murmuring and occasional laughter from out on the deck, but his room stays painfully quiet, leaving him alone with nothing but the overwhelming crush of his thoughts. He feels disoriented, torn every which way by the storm of emotions that has decided to sweep over him. The adrenaline of battle has faded, as has the urgency of their situation, and so he sits alone at his desk with trembling hands and struggles to forget what he's just done. He killed a man today. It isn't his first killing. Not by a long shot, but today felt different. It felt like a choice, a conscious decision, a declaration of loyalty. And not one he's entirely sure he agrees with. But there hadn't been time to hesitate, no time to weigh the options, because he'd heard that gunshot and turned and saw red. Red as the blood staining Phil's shirt, dripping between his fingertips as he sagged to the ground. He'd seen that cocky grin falter into an expression twisted with pain, and his heart had seized, and his hands acted. And now there's a man dead at his hands. He can still see the body fall when he closes his eyes, can still feel the recoil of his pistol and the cool, deadly precision with which he'd aimed it. He killed a man today. One who could have been a crewmate mere months ago. There's a sudden tapping at his window, and a soft, croaking caw. He looks up, and Phil's crow is there once more, peering curiously at him. Scrubbing roughly at his face with his sleeve, he moves to unlatch the window, allowing the bird to hop in with a gentle flutter of wings and a grateful noise. Hey there, he breathes, his voice hoarse. It blinks up at him with a throaty croon and tilts its head, as if curious. It's nothing, really, he assures the creature, to which he receives a loud caw and another flutter of wings before he's dealt a gentle peck to his prosthetic fingers. It makes a soft, clinking noise, and the bird flutters back in surprise, head bobbing and weaving as he observes the strange phenomena. Ever seen one of these before? He asks, lifting it up and carefully bringing it close for the crow to inspect. It's fake. All iron and wood. Can't feel a thing when you do that, he adds, when the bird gives it another peck. Kinda wish I could, though. Even if you're being a little pest. The bird seems to ponder this. Then, promptly, it hops over to his other hand and pecks that one instead. Technoblade squawks in protest, shooing it away, but not before it gets another few pecks in for good measure. Okay, he grumbles, rising from his chair. I get it, what do you need, food? He glances around and finds nothing but the crumbs of his dinner on a silver tray. Luckily, the crow doesn't seem to mind table scraps, and soon it's nibbling greedily at the remains, filling the silence with soft crunches and happy coos. This continues for a while, until the thoughts in Technoblade's mind grow too loud to bear. You know, I'm not really sure how I ended up here. The bird caws pointedly. Okay, I know how. I'm not really sure why. All my life I'd sworn to arrest criminals like Phil, and now... He sighs, his hand thunking heavily against the wood of his desk as he rests it down again. Look at me. I'm the captain of a pirate ship. I'm everything I said I'd never be. The bird is quiet. I think what's worse is, I don't hate it. I told myself I would, but... He swallows, his throat suddenly dry, threatening to close up on him as he's overcome with a surge of conflicting emotion. 6 months ago, I would have called these people my enemies. I would have sent them to the gallows without even thinking twice. And he sees Phil, bound in chains in the brig, locked away in darkness where nobody can see his smile. He sees Tommy and Tubbo with nooses around their necks, imagines a hand ready to pull the lever. He sees Errett, their head held high and proud in front of a firing squad. I would have watched them die, and I wouldn't have felt anything. He feels sick. And now they're my crew, and they look up to me to lead 'em. Hell, I killed a man for them today and sunk a ship. I didn't even hesitate. But sometimes I'm still ready to turn 'em into the first fleet I see because they're criminals, but... There's a burning in the corner of his eyes. He blinks it away. I don't even know if that's the real me talking. I don't know what I believe. The crow has stopped eating. It's silent, just watching him. I don't know what's right anymore.